Hey everyone, we are going to get started. It's Mrs. Sampson. We are on day 7 of our informational unit where we are looking at informational text and learning how our author is using words and phrases, some different structures. So, we're going to continue that unit today. And before we get started, I just want to remind you a couple of our classroom rules. Make sure that your camera is on so that I can see your beautiful face. Make sure that your microphone is off. That way everyone can hear me. And then also make sure that you are in a quiet space. That way you will be able to have as much learning as possible, okay? If you need something during the lesson, remember you can always raise your hand. Your camera is going to be on, so I will be able to see your hand, okay? So make sure you raise your hand if there is something that you need. All right, well, we are going to get started today. And today, our big goal is that we are going to identify and explain how the author uses words and phrases to inform, explain, and describe. So that's our big goal for today, all right? Before we get to that goal, let's review some things that we've already seen and that we've already done. The first thing that we learned about our informational text is that we learned that the author can actually use structures to build the text. So let's look at that first one, sequencing. Okay, this means to show events or procedure in time and order. We've got a little symbol, and some questions that we can ask ourselves will be what happened first, second, third. All right, so I want to see who remembers what are some key words as you're reading. Let's say you have a highlighter in your hand and you are reading your text. What might you highlight if it is a sequencing text structure? What words might you find? I would then wait for my students to respond, and however they respond, that is how I would address it. Yes, great job. So some of the things that we might see are first, next, then, after. You might see words like first, second, third. Remember, this is one that we frequently forget, and it's dates. Okay, so this is dates, and it's going to kind of give us this bigger word, and we've talked about this bigger word, chronological order. So if something is happening in order by dates, that is still sequencing. We just usually call that by the bigger term chronological order. Okay. Great job. Let's look at the next one, compare and contrast. To show how two or more things are alike and different, you see our symbol on there. And some questions that you can ask yourself are what are the similarities and differences of what is being compared? All right. So it's your turn to talk again. Somebody raising their hand. What are some keywords that you might find inside of the text that would help you know that this is compare and contrast? Somebody raising their hand. I would then wait for a student to raise their hand and respond, and then I would address however they responded accordingly. Yes, so we have like, unlike, both, also, similar, different. We know that we have to see at least two topics in a text in order for this to be compare and contrast. So that's going to be the first thing that you look for is, are there two topics? And then after your two topics or your two items, objects, ideas, then you're going to look for those keywords, just like you said, like, unlike, both. Those are all keywords. Wonderful job. All right, so we talked about our text structures, but we've also covered some text features. So I pulled just a couple of them. This is not all of them, but I want to see who can remember what some of these text features are. You have seen this chart before. So look at this right here. What is this a text feature? Somebody raising their hand. Excellent. This is a photograph. Great job. Okay, next one. Let's look at, oh, sorry, I went ahead. Yep. Okay. So somebody raising their hand. Let's see who got the sneak peek. Okay. Yes. That next one is index. Wonderful job. All right. Then down here in the bottom, we see two words. They look a little bit different than the rest of them. What is that? Somebody else raising their hand. Okay. So these are our bolded text or our bolded words. All right, so great job. Wonderful job reviewing those things that we've already learned. Well, today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but I'm very excited about it because I think you're going to get it It's going to be great. It's going to go in. So when I see this chart, this looks like a lot. We have talked about all these things before, though. I wanted to show it to you in a different way. Okay. So we have talked about author's purpose before this year, but I want to put a picture in your mind. Okay. I want to put a picture. Raise your hand actually. If you have had an icy or a snow cone, maybe you've been at the water park or you have been at a ball game and you've gotten yourself an icy or a snow cone. Awesome. Okay, so when you get a snow cone, somebody raising their hand, what colors do you usually get on your snow? Purple, orange, red. Okay, so when we are thinking about how an author writes their text, I like to think of the top as what's included inside of the text. Okay, so we're really going to focus today on that top piece right there, the inform, describe, and explain. So as you see this, I want you to think about the snow of your snow cone or your icy. Okay, now an author can use all kinds of different colors. They can use some informing, they can use some describing, and they can use some explaining in their text to help you better understand their purpose. Okay. Now we're going to come down here later and talk more about this, even though I know we've already covered it this year. But today we're going to try to stay in here. But just remember all of the snow, all of the text, the craft that the author has used, their words, their conventions, sometimes the illustrations that they choose, all of that is working together to help you understand the purpose. Okay. All right. So let's dig into some of these craft. Okay. So inform. So when we are reading and we see words like dates, times, locations, or this big word statistics. And statistics is kind of a big fancy word for like a number fact. Okay, so if you see a number fact, that is usually a statistic. Okay, so if you see any of those words, if it answers who, what, or when, it is probably informing you about the topic. So we would color, if we see some of those words, we would color our snow cone blue. Okay. Then we have describe, and describe says why and how. And describing, I want you to also think about you have your sensory details, your five senses. Can somebody raise your hand and let's name the five senses? Yes, great job. All right, so we have your sight, your hearing, your smelling, your taste, and your touch. Wonderful job. We also might have some imagery. So if you are getting a picture in your mind as you're reading, that means the author is doing a wonderful job of creating imagery in your mind, and they are describing. Okay. One more thing that I don't have on here that I am planning to add on here is the word adjectives. You guys know what adjectives are. These are words that do what? They describe. Absolutely, they describe. All right. So those are, if the author is including those different words, we're going to say that the author is describing. Okay. Last one, explaining. When an author is explaining, they are answering the question why and how. It's usually digging deeper into a topic and telling more. We also see a lot of the text structure sequence, which we just talked about at the beginning. So if you're seeing some first, next, then last, if you're seeing before, after, that is going to be explaining. So when you think about explain, keep that structure of sequencing in your mind, okay? All right, so we're going to do some practice where I'm going to show you how you can look at a text, look at some words, and identify what those words are. Okay? All right, so in our text, we're going to skip straight to the color words. Okay? So our color words here are 4 days later on June 20th at 10:56 p.m. Well, we just talked about some different things. I know that I just read a date. Somebody raising their hand. What is their date? I would call on a student. Okay, yes, the date is July 20th. So I have a date, and you know what? I remember on my chart that it says that dates are to do what? They are to inform. Yes. So this is informing us about something in the text. Very good. All right. So let's check our answer and see if we're right. Yes, this is to inform. We also had a time word here as well, or time. This isn't actually a word, but we do have a time here that is also informing us of something. Okay. All right. Let's look at another one. Okay, here we go, skipping straight to the red text. First, you need to lay 2 pieces of bread on a plate. Second, open a jar of peanut butter. I'm hearing some text structure in here. Is anybody else hearing some text structure? Can somebody raising their hand? All right, I would call on a student. Yes, we have sequencing in this, in these red words. We absolutely have sequencing. And I'm sorry, this one looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing. What is sequencing? Go back and remember. Is it to inform, describe, or explain? Does anybody remember? Call on another student, wait for them to answer. Yes, this is to explain. Very good. So the author is explaining when they use that text structure of sequencing. Very good. All right, let's check our answer and see if we got it right. Yes, great job. It's to explain. Awesome. All right, so next one, we're going straight to the red text. When I see its brown, flaky crust, I begin to drool in anticipation. I'm going to go back to my chart here because this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, I'm going to read that one more time and then I'm going to show you the chart. When I see its brown, flaky crust, I begin to drool in anticipation. All right, I want everybody to take some think time. Look at your chart. What do you think? Raise your hand if you have an idea of which one you think this is. Okay, I would call on a student, and depending on how they respond, I might guide them a different way. Okay, so you think this is digging into the text a little bit deeper. Why do you think it's digging into a topic deeper? What's the topic? Well, we're not really sure, are we? Because we didn't read the whole text. We were just looking specifically at those red words, right? Okay. Could it be something different? All right. Hopefully that student would lean in and get to describe. All right. So, yes, remember when we were talking about describe, there was one word on here that I want to add. I am planning to add, and I'm sorry it is not on here. But that word was, does anybody remember? Adjectives. Very good. So, there are some adjectives inside of this red text. Somebody raising their hand, there are 2 adjectives in here. What are my 2 adjectives? Call on the different hands. Yes, they are brown and flaky. Those are my adjectives. I would also say this is kind of creating some imagery for me as well. Based on the last part of the sentence, I begin to drool in anticipation. So I don't really know what's happening here because I did not read the whole text. But I do know that whoever it is that's writing this, they are really excited for whatever is being baked right now. So in my mind, I'm thinking of something smelling good and I am getting ready for it. So yes, we have described for this. Fantastic job. Okay, so we are now going to we're going to look at a Jamboard and I'm going to show you how to go line by line and kind of determine what you think a paragraph is doing. Is it informing? Is it describing, or is it explaining? So we're going to look at this together in a Jamboard. And then you're going to do something very similar in your Jamboard when it's time for you to do it. But for now, I am still doing this. Okay. So y'all are just doing the same thing. We're just going to a different platform. That way you can see what I want you to do when it's your turn. Okay. All right, so here we are in Jamboard. This is our same passage, and I also have your chart on here to help you. Okay, so our story title this time is called A Mission Accomplished, and I just have one paragraph that you're going to do. So as you are reading, if you hear explaining, we are going to use this color. Okay, and we are going to highlight the text in that color. And I do apologize because Jamboard does not have the colors that I have, but that's okay. We will make it work. Okay. All right. So then in form, if we hear dates, times, locations, statistics, we are going to color those with this color. And last, if we hear describe, we are going to go with this red color. Okay, so if we hear some description words, we're going to go with that red color. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start reading, but I'm only going to highlight if I hear informing, dates, times, location, statistics, if I hear describing, adjectives, sensory details, five senses and imagery, or explaining. And remember, even though, yes, it says digging deeper into a topic, I know that a lot of times it uses that text structure of what? Somebody raising their hand? Sequencing. Very good. All right, so here we go. On March 1st, 2016, I already have something. Raise your hand if you hear it. Call on a student. Yes, very good. This is a date, and a date is to inform. So I'm going to switch my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight my date. Astronaut Scott Kelly. I kind of heard something else. I want to see if anybody else can figure out what it is, though. Raise your hand if you have an idea. I only read 3 words just then. Astronaut Scott Kelly. Okay, so the word astronaut is actually describing Scott Kelly because it's telling us kind of who he is. All right. So in this case, they're kind of using that as an adverb to describe the noun to us. All right, let's keep going. On March 1st, 2016, astronaut Scott Kelly returned to Earth. He completed a 340-day space mission. Did you hear it? I would call on a student. 340, that is a number. And we know that number facts are also sometimes called statistics, or just in this case, this is really more just a fact, and that's good. Great. So we're going to highlight that in blue. 340-day space mission, living on the International Space Station. He went on 3 spacewalks. Somebody raising their hand? Call on a student. Very good. We have another number word. We have 3. 3 what? 3 spacewalks. Excellent. And did more than 400 science experiments. Anybody? Call on a student. Yes, very good. 400 science experiments. It's giving us another number. And we know that numbers frequently are just to inform. Great job. All right, Kelly broke the record for the longest period an American had spent in space at one time. Any ideas here? Call on a student. Yes. Okay, so this could be a fact as well that he broke the record for the longest period. Call on another student. You had something different? Okay, what did you think? You thought there was some describing? What was describing? Longest. Okay, yes, longest is absolutely an adjective. So you know what? It is totally okay if sometimes it's doing both things. That's good and that's fine. Just remember, like, you might like a lot of different colors in your snow cone, and that is okay. All right. Okay, does everyone understand how to do this activity, how to use Jamboard and do your different colors? Yes, great. Okay, well, I have already sent you a link for you to do a paragraph yourself. It looks very similar to mine, just the paragraph is different. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at how you did, okay? All right, so I would break for them to have a few minutes to work on this. We would meet back together and then we would go over how they did and discuss maybe I would ask some different students if they agree or disagree with how one student did it or not. So I do hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you for watching and thank you for your consideration.